So good morning, everyone. I am Katherine Thrower, the manager of logistics and events at Momentum. I'm so glad you could join us today. Feel free to grab your lunch or a snack while we take part in this conversation today. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome to you. We are so thankful that you are investing in this time for you, and we are sure that you're going to come away with some fresh ideas and encouragement for today. On a side note, if you're enjoying the video, that's great. And if you will keep yourself on mute for now, that would be helpful. And then when we join into the conversation shortly, you're welcome to unmute yourself and chime in at the appropriate times. So I also want to thank our amazing sponsors. We have a round of sponsors that sponsor us all year round. They make everything that we do possible. These organizations have a strong commitment to advancing women in leadership. Tina, if you're able to show our first slide of our sponsors. And we could not bring today's session to you without them. They support us all year long throughout our programs, our large community events, and a number of new things that are popping up along the way, especially in years like this. So as I'm about to introduce you to our special guest, Jeannine Bailey today, I would love if you could take a minute and let us know what brings you here today. You can do that in the chat. We would love to know if you need some fresh ideas to get you motivated this spring. Fortunately, weather like today will help us with that. Do you have something you've always wanted to try, but you're unsure of how to take those first steps? Or you may be just a friend of our rock star guest, Jeannine. And wherever she is, you want to be. That may be many of you, but we would love to know those things just so we can get a feel for where you are today. And we are going to be keeping an eye on that chat so that we can incorporate your thoughts and comments into our conversation. And most of all, if this is your first time joining a Momentum event, we would love to know where you work, how you heard about us. You can put that in the chat or a private message to me. And just so you know, also joining us from our Momentum team today are April Benetolo, our CEO, and Tina Upshaw, our Director of Operations. So we are here if you have a note for any of us, and we would love to hear from you. So let's get to the fun part. At Momentum, we always look forward to bringing our talented alumni into the teaching mix with us. And as we explore our topics of interest, both within the workplace and outside of our typical work lives. So I have asked Jeannine Bailey to join our conversation today. Jeannine joined our Momentum family in 2015 when she participated in our 15th executive leadership class. So we're in our 18th year now. At the time, Jeannine was at Southern Nuclear, serving as communications director. And in just the last few years, she added director responsibilities in communications and organizational effectiveness and human resources. Most recently, Jeannine became the talent and employee engagement manager at Alabama Power and Southern Company Operations. She is identifying and guiding the leadership and engagement strategies for those two companies. It is so exciting to see someone like Jeannine touching the lives of the talent that come through her dynamic company. So Jeannine, thank you for joining us today. And as Jeannine pops up on the screen, you're welcome to pin her if you'd like to make sure you see her video. Welcome, Jeannine. We're so glad you're with us. I think you're working from home today.
As are a lot of us, yes. Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Well, good. We have so been looking forward to this conversation. I personally have seen your endeavors taking shape over the last year, and we would love to hear more about your story and how you found a way to ignite your spark both in and out of the workplace. So first, can you briefly describe what you do in your current job and something that you particularly love about it?
Sure. So my title is Talent and Employee Engagement Manager, and I get to do that for about 10,000 employees between Alabama Power and Southern Company Operations. And the best part of my job, quite frankly, is connecting people with opportunities and resources to help them have the careers they want to have. My team, I have a small but mighty team, and we are responsible for our development programs and initiatives. We set up programs for people that want to advance in their careers and help them build new skills, enhance their understanding of how the business operates, and to develop relationships with mentors and each other. We also work with leaders to help them to develop their employees. And so helping them to identify talent and find people that they think have capabilities and potential to advance. I love doing that. It is really, really rewarding to be able to help people see what the future could look like for themselves and the people that they work with. Another kind of interesting piece of my job on the employee engagement piece is that as I took this new job, we were trying to figure out how to keep people engaged during a pandemic. I literally took this job the week the world shut down. And so it was a little bit of a daunting task to try to figure out how to get people that were now kind of suddenly thrust into this different environment to still feel connected back to the company and back to each other. And so the first project that I worked on was this platform that we've created called Connect. And it's got different content. We do webinars each week, kind of like this. We do live fitness classes. We have articles and podcasts and videos, all sorts of stuff on topics like mental health or financial fitness or physical well-being or inclusion, and tips on how to work from home. That's the session that we're going to do tomorrow. And we had thousands of employees kind of at some point over the course of 2020 engage with that, which tells me that people wanted to feel connected. So it's really great to be able to provide that and to hopefully be something that continues on as we move through 2021.
So this is a surprise question. Did you take any of those fitness classes or lead any of them for your 10,000 employees?
Absolutely not with the leading part, but I 100% participated in one or in several. One of my favorites was I did a yoga class, and people had their video cameras on. So it wasn't just the instructor, everybody else had their video cameras on too. And at one point I had to pause and take a screenshot because we all had like our legs in the air, and it was a very funny part of my job that day, but nobody needs to see me on camera trying to do the fitness stuff.
That's definitely some good team building there.
Yeah, for right.
So I've always loved the way that Jeannine talks about her work family and the employees she works with, and just how much she really enjoys all the facets of her career, how she invests in others. But I also want to give you a little more personal information about her, tell you a little bit about her personal bio. Jeannine describes herself on another one of her endeavors, her dynamic blog, which is called JeannineMBailey.com. We'll add that to the chat. She calls herself a proud mama, a gratitude junkie, a storyteller, an avid reader, an advocate and ally, an Alabama transplant, and she is also a self-proclaimed personal development nerd, ENFJ, and a 3 on the Enneagram. So raise your hand if any of those things, connect you with her. I tend to find that when someone throws out their Enneagram number or that Myers-Briggs code, or just, a fun adjective, that it helps us connect with them. And so I really love the words that Jeannine has described herself with. So Jeannine, it sounds like you've spent a good bit of time learning about who you are, knowing how you would describe yourself. And can you tell us about that process for you, how you came to, feeling like you knew those things and could describe yourself that way?
Sure. So doing the job that I have gives me a lot of opportunity to reflect and to do different assessments, personality assessments, and skills building type stuff. So now I get to do all that stuff I'm fascinated by for a living. It's super fun. Also got to do some of it as part of being in the Momentum program. A lot of time for self-reflection as part of that journey. And so that was super helpful to have time set aside during each of our sessions to spend some time on that. But I've always been fascinated by how people work. I wanted to know everything growing up. I would ask my mom like 5,000 questions a day about why, and I didn't grow out of that once I was a kid. I've always wanted to know kind of why people do different things. And I've also always been really interested in helping people to achieve their best, whether it's in a work environment or in a personal environment. I want to help people solve the problems that they think they have and help them figure out kind of how to be in a better position. And so that really starts with me. I have to understand myself pretty well so that I can speak credibly about some of the things. And so, through a lot of trial and error and a lot of assessments, I started to figure out kind of what makes me tick, what's important to me, and the things that I need to work on. That journey has continued to evolve kind of all through my 20s, 30s, and 40s. That little blurb that you read is kind of my bio on my blog, but it also is super helpful as a blurb to put on my dating profiles. Now that I'm trying to figure out how to do that, so giving people a snapshot of who you are, kind of that elevator speech, is really good. I am in constant pursuit of knowledge. Like, I always have books that I'm reading. I've got my library back here that I'm working through. Myers-Briggs and Enneagram are my two current favorites. I got certified to be a Myers-Briggs facilitator a few years ago, and I love how it helps you to kind of understand yourself and your motivations and how you make decisions and how you show up at work and with other people in your life. And Enneagram, I think you're a fan of that one, Katherine, where it kind of tells you about what you look like at your best and what you look like when you're not your best, and how to get back to your best if you need to. And for me, those kind of assessment pieces are just data, right? Every Enneagram type or every Myers-Briggs type or every assessment that you do, like, every type has a purpose. There's no good or bad associated with any of those types. It's really just helpful information to figure out what makes you tick. And really, if you're building a team, you want somebody from every type. Because diversity in that regard helps us to have better, stronger teams. And so for me, having that information helps me to know kind of the part I play on a team, whether it's at work or in a nonprofit that I volunteer for, or in a group of friends. It's really just good information. Some of the other stuff you said, I love being a mom. I love being a mom. I didn't get the chance to be a mom until I was a little bit older, because I am career focused and ambitious, but being a mom is my number one priority. And sometimes it feels a little weird saying that around professionals, because I don't want people to think that, like, I'm not 100% serious about my job, but I'm definitely love being a mom, and balancing the two is hard, as I'm sure everybody that has kids can relate to, but it's definitely one of the greatest joys of my life. As for the gratitude piece, that's one of the things that has been transformational for me. I had a friend of mine teach me how to do a gratitude practice in my 20s, and I've leaned into it kind of over the years since. And there's always something to be grateful for, even when it doesn't look like that on the surface. And honestly, that's a lot of what I write about. And by committing to that gratitude practice and spending my day looking for things that I can put on my list when I do my next list, it helps me to change my attitude. It shifts my thinking from, the world's against me or everything's terrible to, there is good. And if I look for it, I find more of it. And so my experience has been that that's super helpful. Storytelling is how we connect, and one of the things that some people may or may not know about me is I spent 19 years working in radio. So before working for Southern Nuclear and Alabama Power and Southern Company Operations, I got a chance to talk to some of the most fascinating people across all different industries, whether it was musicians or politicians or entertainers or community servants, and everybody's got a story. I love finding out what we have in common by hearing people's stories, and I love being able to tell my own story and kind of claim my truth. There's power to be found in reflecting on the stories of your own life to figure out lessons learned and stuff that you want to share with people. And especially in this kind of crazy world we're living in now, it's really easy to want to hide and not share. But for me, I know that the true connection that I want with people is found by telling my story and listening to their stories. And that's kind of why I read so much. That's another way for me to connect to other stories from other people. I learned my mom, I think, was looking for something to keep me busy. And so she taught me how to read when I was 3. So I've always been a reader. And it's helped me to lean into finding out about other people, and becoming an advocate and ally is formed largely by what I've read and the stories that I've heard of other people. I know I'm in a place of privilege, and by recognizing that and reading about the history that we have and by other people's stories, I know that it's part of my job using that privilege to be an advocate and ally. And I've lived all over the country, so I've had the opportunity to meet lots and lots of different kind of people. And really, the more I learn, the more I realize that we have more in common than we realized. When we first started, and sharing stories is one of the ways that we kind of find that out.
Absolutely. So since we can see those books sitting right behind you and you have referred to them so many times, give us one of those selects on
So I've
there.
got stuff in there about the Enneagram, called the Honest Enneagram. I've got things in there about relationships. I've got business books in there. One's called Insight, one's called Good Strategy. I've got a journal. I've got my Bible. The Lazy Genius is in there. That's a book that Katherine and I both really like. So there's a lot of different kinds of books in there.
So are you the person that reads 5 different books at the same time, or whittles away at them and then, maybe goes back to them?
I'm reading a bunch of stuff at the same time. I'm interested in too many things to just focus on one. So I do a little bit from a bunch of stuff at the same time.
Okay. So kind of connecting some dots as we talk about finding, a passion or a new interest, and just thinking about what that looks like. I know you have a little method to your madness because you're pretty organized as well.
To a fault, yes.
So can you tell us about how you took the basis of kind of your knowledge and understanding of yourself and then honed a passion rather from there?
Yeah.
Or if it was a totally different process from that?
So for me, I actually had a mentor in my 20s, and she laid out some thoughts for me to kind of figure it out. I was at a crossroads where I liked what I did for a living very much, and I was successful, and I was enjoying working hard and having success there. But I also felt like I needed some outside interests or pursuits so that I wasn't just all work all the time. And so her recommendations, and these are the ones that I've used to kind of pursue the things in my life, kind of boil down to like 6 easy steps. And I will copy and paste these into the
We
into
love
the chat.
6 easy steps.
I know, right? Like follow me for tips, right? So these are the tips that she gave me, and they have served me very well, kind of all along the way. So the first one that she gave me was get ready to try out some stuff and to be bad at it. A lot of the people on this call, I think, especially people that are associated with, professional development or executive improvement or whatever, we're used to being good at things, right? And kind of naturally good at things. There's a reason I don't play basketball, even though I'm, 12'9". I don't naturally do that very well. And so I kind of gave that up when I was in high school and decided, I would never play again. And I don't like being bad at things. I don't think anybody likes it, right? It's uncomfortable. But if I want to tap back into some other things outside of work, then I am going to need to think about some things that I can do that I might be bad at for a while. And so then I also need to be intentional about making time for them and being realistic about the kind of time I have. And the example that I'll give is, at one point, I was a marathon runner. I ran one marathon. And I don't know if you've ever tried to run a marathon, but that takes hours and hours of training a week. I am no longer a marathon runner because I don't have that kind of time. And so if I'm honest with myself about the kind of time that I have to give, and then I'm intentional about blocking that out, so that I make sure I don't kind of get it eaten up by other things, then that's like a key step in me having time to explore the things that I want to try. But I need to be realistic. I don't know what everybody's schedules look like, but I know that we're all very busy people. And so I'm a nerd on my calendar. I literally have like color-coded time blocks for things, and I have green set aside for the things that I want to, use for my development.
Patty LaVoy's nodding her head right now. Yeah.
Patty's my girl. Yeah. And I know, like, I have a friend that's on here today, my friend Cheryl, who, I used to talk to her about running all the time. And her life is such that she still has the time to continue to pursue those. But I'm not in a position where I have that anymore. So I'm more of a 5K girl these days than a marathon runner. But being intentional about blocking out that time and making sure you're realistic about what time you have. And then thinking back to things that made you happy when you were a kid and how you can replicate that as an adult. One of the joys of my life when I was a kid was writing stories. And I had, really encouraging teachers that would give me good feedback about the stuff that I submitted. I loved putting together like plays with my friends in my backyard. And, that was always fun. And, at dinner at night, like I loved telling my family about my day. So storytelling was always something that I was really connected to as a kid. I know other people that my friend that taught me about this, she loved to paint. And as a 55-year-old woman, she decided she wanted to start setting aside some time to paint. And she knew she wasn't going to be, the next Picasso or, Monet, but she brought her joy as a child to paint. And so she decided to jump in and be bad at it for a while and kind of take some of that joy back in her life. Another kind of key component is to have people that are going to support you along the way. So steps 4 and 5 kind of go together. You need to figure out what kind of options you have. My best friend Gail is pursuing lots of different hobbies and crafts right now. Last night she did a online jewelry making class. That may not have existed 2 years ago before the pandemic. And so, there's a lot more options online. She's also created this incredible backyard garden. And she's had to do a lot of research to figure out kind of how to do that. But doing the research so that you know what you're up against helps you to think about how to add that into your life. And then having a support person or group or something like that can bring you some accountability if you start to slack off a little bit. Or if you need some cheerleading along the way, like, last night, my friend Gail sent me a picture of the earrings she made. They're beautiful. If she didn't live in New Jersey, I would want her to drop them off on my front porch so I could wear them today. And then kind of the most important part for me along all of this is to check in to see how it's going. As highly motivated people, sometimes we add things into our life and don't reflect how it's serving us. And so, after a period of time thinking about like, do I still want to keep doing this, or does this still work for my current season that I'm in? I brought up the thing about marathons. I love to run. I absolutely love to run. But in my current season of life, being a single mom with a job that I started last year, like I don't have hours a day to devote to that. That doesn't mean that I have to give it up forever. It just means it doesn't serve me right now. But I also don't want to quit before the magic happens. So, I'll use my friend Gail as the example. If she took one jewelry making class and then quit, she may not know if she really likes it or not. And so thinking about how you want to touch base after 3 months, 6 months, whatever, to determine if it's still working for you or if you're making progress or if that it's something that you still like or want to explore more is important. Because otherwise we blink and a year's gone by and we don't know if we're getting what we wanted out of it. So all of those are important parts of it, but the kind of full circle piece at the end of making sure that it's giving you the joy that you wanted or the passion outside of work is really important.
Great. So thinking about those, 6 ideas, pointers for us, I'd love to take it to the streets for a
Let's
second
do it.
here and see if anyone that's here with us today has, do any of these pointers kind of speak to you or help you think, oh, this is maybe how I could approach something new or something that you've been working on that you need some encouragement on, that sort of thing. Any ideas there from the audience? Someone, let's see, Lizzie, come on, unmute yourself. She's raising her hand so nicely.
Jeannine will laugh because I have no problem contributing these types of conversations, and she knows me well. I really enjoyed your takeaway about you can go away and come back to something. It doesn't mean that you have to be done with it, because right now I'm in a mom period of my life with kids and all kinds of things. And I used to do a lot of painting. It was my spark, if you will. and can't do it right now. And I really appreciated your insight into the fact that it doesn't mean that you don't paint anymore or that you can't come back to it. It just maybe means you table it for a second. So I thought that was a really good way to look at it, because it doesn't feel like a loss when you put it that way. It's just, you know what, I'm going to do something else in the meantime. So thanks for that.
I'm glad. Yeah, I mean, and that's something to think about, because we are people that tend to live in extremes, right? We're all or nothing. And so it's, I am a painter or I'm not a painter. And that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. Like, if you're somebody that enjoys art, having 10 minutes a day that you doodle, like, put it on the books, make sure that it happens, or whatever, or 10 minutes a week or something like that. Like, it doesn't have to be, I'm either all, creating big works of art that people hang on their walls, or I don't do anything at all. And for me, that's helpful, because my kind of hobby of choice is writing. And so, I post on my blog, but that doesn't mean that I have to go publish a book, right? Like, that doesn't have to be my end game. The end game is I like to write. And so having that purpose and passion fed in that way is what's important, not the kind of end result or the big outcome.
Yeah, and Jeannine and I had even talked about that a little. We have some of that entrepreneurial spirit in us, and sometimes any new interest, you feel like you need to figure out how to make a side hustle, make some money off of that skill or whatever that is. And oftentimes it seems like that may take away from the joy of what that activity, could provide.
Yeah. Yeah, I was talking to Katherine when we were kind of brainstorming about this, and one of the things that I like to do, but that I kind of went too big on and needed to reel back in, was crocheting. And so I had it in my head that, like, this is a pandemic. I have all this time at home. I'm gonna, lean into this thing. And I bought all the things. I bought the hooks and the yarns and the patterns and blah blah blah. And I've made like half a blanket. Like, I have not done the thing that I thought I would do. I was gonna make everybody's Christmas presents. It was gonna be amazing. But it turns out that that's not necessarily my passion. But that also, like, I was putting too much pressure on myself to make it a thing. Like, it wasn't about the act of crocheting. It was about this product that I was going to then go give to everybody for Christmas presents. And it made it not fun anymore when there was like this expected outcome. Not necessarily I was going to make money off of, but that I was going to, make presents for people. Doing something for the sake of doing it is really where the magic happens for me.
And as a follow-up to Lizzie's comment, does anyone else have one of these tips that might encourage you, like, in your next step of something?
I was going to build on Lizzie, and Jeannine actually is, I think, one of those accountability partners. It takes like a village for me, because I need a lot of folks keeping. But the first in her list about being bad at things, and for me, it may be because it's a motherhood thing. You're really good at something, and then all of a sudden you don't do it for a while, and so when you jump back in, you're bad at it. And I don't know about the rest of y'all, but I measure related to my last, where I was versus enjoying the experience. So things that I've appreciated, and Jeannine, you may want to expand on, is bad at things you used to be good at. And a lot of it's trying to find that joy, and not, you may never get back to where you were. But to me, it's having someone help me realize that wherever you end up, it ends up almost being more special in certain respects. Because it felt like sometimes the things that I wanted to get back to, if I couldn't do it well, there was no joy in it, and there was pressure. And then it was just one more thing that, made me feel like, something wasn't going well, and I wasn't good enough.
Yeah.
So, speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, and I can use my running as an example. Being at different phases of running where that was something that I was really passionate about, and I was passionate about getting other people to do it with me, and I was passionate about achieving different milestones and getting better at it all the time. And today, I mean, I would struggle to keep up with the slowest of slow people. But trying to remember that, like, the progress that I'm making is getting up and doing the running, like the act of doing the thing that I find joy in, not the end result or the number on the treadmill, or if I look at my watch and go, oh, I shaved a minute off my time, or whatever it is. Try to remember that the thing for me that's enjoyable is the act of doing the activity, not the measurable outcomes. It's hard. It's very hard, especially as we age or have less time or any of that kind of stuff. Like it's kind of humbling to admit, like, I'm probably never going to run as fast as I used to, right? Like, or I'm probably never going to be as athletic as I was at one point, which was not that much, to be honest. But finding ways that I can find joy in the doing and committing to that being the outcome instead of an end result.
Yeah. Does anyone else have maybe an activity that they tried that started off kind of on shaky ground, but with a little more effort turned into something that's been really valuable for you?
And we also have a hand raised, Cheryl.
Oh, good.
You want to share something?
Yeah. Hey, sorry I can't turn my video on. I am struggling with some bandwidth at my house today, but Jeannine, you're a rock star. This is a great session. And I just wanted to make a comment, the similar topic that Lee brought up about don't be afraid to try things that, and maybe bad isn't the right word, but even in your career, things that you may not be as good at as you would like, try out those jobs or those opportunities, because you will learn something that you can take back in your current career. So I think it applies to your job and your career as well as to your personal life. Because I too tried out knitting, and I can tell you that it just frustrated me. I wish I had a half a blanket of knitting. I can't even do like one complete row of knitting, but I tried it and I'm glad, and I have all the things if I ever want to get back and do that again. So thanks, Jeannine, and you're an inspiration.
Oh, thank you, Cheryl, for throwing that in.
And Ann Pritz has her hand raised. I think she has something to share.
Oh, good, Ann.
Well, I'm going to kind of echo a little bit what Cheryl just said. Jeannine, I'm going to take a pause and be a cheerleader for you in a hot second. There are 67 people listening to you right now, and that is a huge coup and a huge credit to people that are inspired by you, that know you, but then also for those that don't. This is a very special opportunity to get to know Jeannine Bailey, because she's absolutely amazing. So I'm going to take that cheerleader moment and give it back to you. But I also really like number one, the same as Lee, trying things and being bad at them is something I had to learn to do as an adult, right? Fear of failure, wanting to be successful, all of those types of things when it comes to work. But how I relate that to my personal life right now is my 5.5-year-old also has those trepidations of learning something new and being bad at them. So I find myself coaching him that it's okay. Well, let's put myself in the mirror, right? And tell myself that same advice. So that one was really good and it hit home. So proud of you, girl.
Thank you. I have the best class ever. I really do. One of the other examples I'll use is, speaking of being an example for our children. So I've always wanted to be somebody that was good at golf. I've always wanted to be somebody that would feel comfortable. If somebody asked me to play, I wouldn't feel like I was embarrassing myself. As it turns out, you have to practice for that to be the case. And I have never wanted to really humble myself to go through that process. But recently, my daughter showed some interest in playing golf. And we got a hand-me-down set of clubs from her cousin. And so she and I are taking lessons together. And what's been fun is to remind myself as we're going through it. I basically have the same skill set as my 8-year-old when it comes to playing golf, but like I'm trying to model the behavior of like, when I shank it to the right or left, as I often do, or miss altogether, which I also often do, not swearing or, getting mad at myself or, whatever. I'm like, oh, well, better next time, and it, like hearing myself say that out loud is, I'm having to like put my money where my mouth is. Like, it's okay to be bad at stuff. It's okay to try new things. It's okay not to be awesome at first. That's the reason people have lessons, whether it's horseback riding or dancing or golf or knitting or any kind of outside enterprise that we want to learn. There are people out there that are willing to teach us if we want to humble ourselves to be bad at stuff for a little while, to get that guidance. And I'm grateful that it's out there, and it's been a really fun opportunity to do this with my daughter.
Yeah, I'd like that you could try that with your, family member or maybe a friend. I had that come up as a kind of personal revelation this year. when my family has stayed home for most of this year, schooling and working at home. And my family lovingly told me that they wished I would partake in some, hobbies or new activities that they could occasionally join me in. I found myself this year like diving into more work or work related endeavors that I was learning or reading or exploring more, but not quite like freeing myself up with some new ideas on other things. And so it can certainly be a way to bring you closer to other people in some of these things that can be very important. And I tried to take that as a nice suggestion and not a hit on how I was, how I was handling things. But along with the weaving activities, my daughter and I have done some macrame courses together online, and they're just some neat things to try and get exposure to. Go ahead.
I think one of the other things that a lot of times we fall into that all or nothing thinking is if I can't solve the whole problem, I don't want to do anything, right? And so when it comes to like volunteering for different organizations, like if I'm not going to be the president of the board, that doesn't mean that I can't volunteer an hour of my time for something I care about or something that's breaking my heart, right? And so having that mindset of I'm going to be bad at stuff doesn't necessarily mean like I'm going to be a rookie at stuff. It means I may not have to be in charge of everything, right? And so I can be a small bit player for an organization that I love if I want to volunteer my time. And I don't have to be the person running the fundraiser. I don't have to be the, one that's making sure the board does everything they're supposed to do. Like if that's what I have to give, I can get joy out of a small contribution instead of thinking I have to do all or nothing.
Absolutely. Because that passion can really, it just means an enthusiasm for something. It doesn't have to mean all encompassing or, it can fill the small or larger pieces. Yes. So coming off of some of these ideas, does anyone have a question to pose for Jeannine or, one of us that, or maybe an idea that you're thinking about getting into or learning more about, but you're not quite sure where to start? Carrie has her hand raised.
Hey, this is so great. I know Katherine is awesome. She invited me here, so thank you for that. And Jeannine, you're fantastic. So I'm coming from a place of a massive all or nothing. So I am either this or I am not. And I was a piano performance major in college, and so now it's like, well, I can't touch it if I can't practice 4 hours a day, And so my question is, for those of us that feel similarly, how do you move that, how do you move towards a more middle ground? Like, what are steps that I could take to kind of refresh or reframe my mindset to say it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be on a cooking show or eating Hot Pockets, right? So how do you gauge that?
For the record, I would totally watch a cooking show about eating Hot Pockets. So that would be awesome. But I think that was kind of Lee's question too, right? So I think identifying the objective, right? Like I want to find joy in cooking, or I want to find joy in movement, or whatever the thing is that you're trying to achieve, and then figuring out realistically what you have time to do and committing to that and only that. So for me, like my joy is writing. And I would love if I had 4 hours a day of uninterrupted time to sit down and hammer out a book. That is not my life. And so I have a couple hours a week where I can dedicate that. And if I achieve that, I count that as a success, right? And so reframing what success looks like is a big part of it. Reframing, I'm not either Hot Pockets or professional chef, but like I'm somebody who plans and tries a new recipe once a week. Or, like thinking about what a reasonable step would be for the time and commitment that you have. And then sticking to it. Like that's the success, is sticking to it and not beating yourself up if you don't end up, getting discovered and put on a cooking show from your own home.
Yeah, Carrie, I wasn't quite a piano performance major, but I did play piano, for about the first earlier 15 years of my life. but I would play classical and read music, and I'd never learned how to improvise. And so when I was a young mom, I ended up living across the street from Mason Music, one of the music teaching studios here in town. And I happened to meet another young parent teacher. And for that year, I went for an hour a week and learned how to chord and improvise. And that was something I'd never done before. And so, and now that's something I can teach, my family. But it was just a new way to kind of take a spin on something that had been a passion and important in my life. And I bet there are some budding pianists in this group too. So, yeah. So if anyone is brave enough, maybe you want to jot in the chat like something, an activity that you either love and enjoy now, it's your current passion, thinking about starting, and then you may see someone else mention something like that, to where if you have a connection, you might want to talk about it. If there are specific areas, like our momentum team are pretty good connectors in a lot of areas, and we love to help kind of fill these gaps for people. And so if you'd like to throw something in the chat or message me about an area that you're trying to find resources in town, we would love to try to help you do that. And so that's just one option for us here in the chat. So Jeannine, as some parting tips for our friends, or last minute hand raises on things that you wish you'd asked before we ended this webinar today, I'd love to give you that opportunity.
Oh, I see a hand up. Do we want to do that before?
Yes, go ahead, Lee.
All right, gotta unmute. And I asked this because we have some similarities in some respects, but I know some folks on the call, mention things about, just different demands with work or children. As much as you're, sharing, I think sharing the perspective of what it's like when you are also just transitioning, into being a single mom. I think sometimes those are things that, it feels awkward to share, but I feel like there's a lot of folks that are, that I think try to figure that piece out. And sometimes it's in places that, you just need to feel a little safe. I think you've done a beautiful job. Quite frankly, that's one of the things I love. I love going to, Jeannine's blogs and her Instagram, whatever it is, just snippets that seem to give me, oxygen for the next day or the next minute. But if there's anything from that you think would be comfortable and worthwhile to share with this group of women, because I think that's
Sure.
That's something special that you bring to the table.
It's very kind of you to say. And yeah, I mean, this is a club I never wanted to be in, being a single mom, but now that I'm here, embracing that this is my season, I've had to make some adjustments with how I spend my time, obviously. But the main lesson that I've learned is nothing lasts forever, right? And so planning for the season that I'm in rather than the season I wish I had or the season I used to have has been really helpful. And also accumulating a support network, whether it's for childcare so that I can go do something that I need to do or attend an event that I want to go to. That's helpful. Or if I just need a sanity break, having a person that I can call and say like, that is super helpful as well. And so kind of as you're thinking through what you need, thinking about, who can support you on a down day, who can cheer you on when you need encouragement. Because I used to have like a person, right, that I was supposed to go to that did both of those things. And so having somebody that I can go to and be like, guess what? This thing went really well and it was awesome. Or, oh my God, my life is falling apart and I need some help putting it back together. Thinking about who we have in our life already that we have as part of that support network, or the person that I can lean on and just say, can I drop my kid off for an hour? Like, I need a break. So kind of that village or tribe mindset is really important. But then also being realistic about, this is where things are. And the time commitment that it's going to take for me to do my job and do my parenting duties, means that my other stuff takes a back seat to a certain extent. But that's why I have to be really careful about planning my time. Because what I want to do is sit and play on this thing. And there's this new game that I love called Gardenscapes. I'm obsessed. It's a problem. But if I spend time doing that, I'm making a choice not to do the things that I know bring me joy. And so finding that balance between, veg out time and the things that I know fill my cup is really important. And so that's why I'm a nerd about having that calendar built out where I've got the times that I go on the treadmill. I've got the times that I do the development stuff that I like to do. I've got time with friends, and it's all color coded so that when I look at my week, I know that I've got it in there, and I don't wake up 2 weeks from now and go, I haven't spent any time with a friend in 2 weeks, even if it's a Zoom date, or I haven't done anything with writing in 2 weeks. I look at my calendar and see that I've got those touch points. And then I also don't panic knowing that I've got stuff planned, right? And so if I'm feeling kind of yucky and lonely today, but I know that I've got a girls' dinner planned for Friday night, that helps me to kind of hang on and to have that space built in already as I plan out my calendar is really helpful so that I know that it's all in there. It may not be every day, all day, but it's all in there.
Yes, Katie added to the chat in here. She said, I'm so grateful for the reflection advice. I need to spend more time doing that, especially with the season that I'm in. And it is nice to think about what are the ways that we can even take throughout the day. For some, it might be waking up 30 minutes earlier just to think through those things about how you want the day to run. For me this year, it's been every day I take a 4 o'clock walk and my brain thinks about things it has not had the chance to think about at the desk, and so it is funny to think that we have to plan reflection time, but we usually have to plan reflection time.
Yeah.
Oh, good. We've got some other great resource suggestions happening in the chat. Tiffany's recommended a book, Fringe Hours, Making Time, and some other neat things happening there. So that's great. Were there any other hands raised that we've missed?
No, but I see a comment in the chat from Lizzie that says, circling back to another concept, she and I have worked together in the past, so we've talked about this off of this call, but that also works for the idea of trying new things and being afraid to be good at things again. Is fail fast to succeed sooner. Don't be afraid of wet paint. So that's a concept that we've talked about in a professional environment where basically you won't know if something works if you don't go and try it, right? But if you're going to suck at something, figure it out fast, right? Like, I am not a crocheter. I figured that out pretty quickly. And so, that's a sunk cost, all those things that I've purchased, but rather than spend a ton of time pursuing this thing that ended up being more frustrating than joyful, I put that up on the shelf. And at some point, if my daughter wants to crochet, I've got all the things that she wants to do. She has many options. But leaning into something and picking something and going all in, like, I'm going to learn 6 new pieces of music this year, or I'm going to learn 17 new recipes or whatever, and I'm going to commit this amount of time each week to trying it rather than just thinking about it and then waking up and it's, January of 2022 and you never did any of it, is a really important way to get started. Like thinking about what am I going to get in and try so that I can find out, I can gather data to figure out if I'm going to be good at something or not, or if it's going to have the desired effect or not necessarily be good at something, because that's not the point. But I love that idea, Lizzie. Thanks for bringing that up.
Good. I love seeing people talking about the things that they are doing or wanting to do, because that is usually how I'm spurred on to do something too, and take that next step. It's just watching someone like Jeannine or any of you other women, trying something is simply real encouragement most of the time. So, that's so neat. So it's about time for us to wrap up this morning. We are at Momentum. We're going to continue adding more kind of lunch and learn type events, and we have a number of other things that are happening, but we just get so excited to bring in our alumni and friends that we work with in the community, like Jeannine, to just bring that everyday voice, to what things that are our concerns of the day, things we're all working through at home and at work, and just to have some time together to have a safe place to talk and explore some of these ideas. So thank you, Jeannine, for sharing so much of your personal life with us today. It's just really impactful to like see your face, hear your voice, and just kind of feel like we're in neat conversation together with that. So thank you for being here, and we look forward to watching what you're up to next. So everyone, make sure you go to her blog posts and check those out, and you'll see them on some of her other socials as well, because her stories just about the learning moment of this morning are just really impactful, and I've really enjoyed those this year. So up on our slides, we are featuring the things that Momentum has coming up next, and we want to make sure that you know about them to take advantage of some really neat opportunities. Next month in March, which is Women's History Month, we are putting together a large, wham bam, exciting event that is a free virtual event, a power-packed 90 minutes of special content for you. This is a great type of event for you to invite your teams and coworkers to attend with you, pass on to your friends. We already have over 800 people registered in just about 10 days of open registration. And so we're looking to have probably a couple of thousand excited attendees there. We will have some great prizes, swag bags, that sort of thing. And most importantly, great content for you to take to apply in what you're doing now. We have the web link on the screen, and we will add it to the chat so that you can immediately see where that event is on our momentumleaders.org website. And then we also have another neat event coming up next month. We're starting a book club. We might be a little late to the game, but it's just because we've been thinking of really great things so that when it starts, it's great. So in March, we are reading The Vanishing Half. If you want to find our resources on our website, you can learn more about this book. This is one of Barack Obama's recommendations. It's on some of the top book lists right now, and it's very appropriate for the time we are in and lends itself very well to a great discussion. So we would love for you to join us in that in March, and then you'll be seeing the additions that we make there. We also want to, again, thank our sponsors who help us bring this content to you, but we are constantly adding so much content that any support that we can bring in beyond that is very appreciated. If something like this event or other events that you've participated in with us have been meaningful for you, please consider giving a small donation to add towards that. We've added the link for donations in the chat, and all other links on our website. We'll add a few more things here at the end of the chat. We'll help you see some of the resource pages that we commonly recommend. Some follow on a personal wavelength, some are more professional. You can also link to our past webinars that we've done. We've had a Wellness Wednesday type webinar where we focus on wellness topics. We've built up quite a nice library and have a YouTube channel that you can also follow there. So, and we always make sure those are laden with takeaway tips that you can immediately apply, that you can share with your teams and that sort of thing. So with that, we want to thank you for being here, and we hope you will stay tuned for what we have coming up next. We'll leave the video and the chat on for a few minutes in case anyone wants to connect, and our team will look and see if there were any specific questions for us, okay? Thank you, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you all.